Hey, this is Todd Graves, the king of the Super Bowl Host Committee Parade. And this episode of The Seismic Shift is all about the Super Bowl and bringing our community together.
Welcome to the Seismic Shift podcast. We are so happy that you're here. I'm your host, Michelle Johnston, and together we explore the seismic shifts that are shaking up the way that we work and the way that we live. And today's episode is incredibly special for a number of reasons. Number one, we have this huge panel of our best leaders, seriously representing our cities in the state of Louisiana, we're all in the Super Bowl committee together. And we're going to talk about how to bring this whole region, this whole state together and learn more about their cities. Welcome our top leaders from the great state of Louisiana. So glad to have you on the podcast today. We'll kick it off with Jill. Jill Kidder, tell us, how in the world did you get to be the top leader in Baton Rouge? Talk to us.
Well, Michelle, thank you very much for having all of us first and foremost. But, that's a great question. I'm still asking myself that as well, because 2.5 years ago, I had the distinct privilege of leading the Louisiana Association of Convention and Visitors Bureaus and the Louisiana Travel Association, where we all work together so closely. So, and I'll tell you that the three people on this call were very instrumental in pushing me to apply for this job. So I have to really shout out to all three of those folks who are on the call to say thank you, because I am enjoying the heck out of this job now.
I mean, how beautiful is that, y'all, right? So, it does take a village for sure. I told Jill when she first popped up on the podcast, I said, thank you for representing the growth in the whole state of Louisiana that's happening in Baton Rouge, because it's a lot of pressure, but also a lot of incredible opportunity to be a part of that growth. So since we're beginning with you, Jill, when you think about Baton Rouge, I got my PhD at LSU, love Baton Rouge, love LSU. Obviously, love the great state of Louisiana. How many people from Baton Rouge go to the Super Bowl? How big is the Super Bowl for Baton Rouge?
Oh, it's a big deal for Baton Rouge, and I'm not sure the numbers, Michelle, and I would hate to even estimate what that would be. But of course, we're a football town. Everybody loves football. And so excitement around the Super Bowl is big in Baton Rouge.
Oh, I love that. I couldn't agree with you more. And it's only an hour and a half away. And we are such big football fans. So when you're on the Super Bowl committee, what do you see as your role and your task representing Baton Rouge in order to make this the best event possible?
Well, I really do think that we're here to help get the message out. And, especially to those that we can influence in our local area and also on a regional and national level. We even just had some folks from the UK here who were really interested in Louisiana's football, Louisiana State University's football specifically. And, I think that it's even becoming an international phenomenon, and certainly the Super Bowl is. And so I think if we can help just amplify the message, that's what we're here to do.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you so much, Jill. And now we want to hear from Ben from Lafayette. Talk to us, Ben. How in the world did you get to be the leader of the chamber, the head leader in Lafayette, representing everything? And Lafayette's one of the coolest cities ever. Let's just be honest. It's so cool.
Thank you. I appreciate that plug. And I wish I had found this industry many, many years ago, but I graduated in public relations, started in the private sector at Coca-Cola, and then left that to be the campaign manager for a guy running for city parish president, mayor president in Lafayette named Joey Durrell. Spent 6 years with him. And then I was serving as the director of community development when my predecessor, Gerald Bro, who's sort of a legend in the industry, after 31 years, announced his retirement. And one day he said, Ben, I think you'd be good at this. And I never had even thought about it. So I'm grateful to him to kind of plant that, bug in my ear. And I ended up applying and I have been just so fortunate to lead this organization for the last 12 plus years.
Oh, that's incredible. Thank you for sharing how you got there. I was thinking today, when I was thinking about having you all on this panel, is one of the things is when you're the head, you're the symbol, you're the representative, all of you, of your cities. You really are. Your face represents Baton Rouge, Monroe, Lafayette, and Lake Charles. And I was sitting there thinking, you really can't be an asshole. Like, let's just be honest here, right? You gotta be a good person who represents, the community, because it's not even just business. It is the people, right? And you are, so not to put a lot of pressure on you, Ben, but thank goodness you're a good human, right?
I like to think so. It comes with great prestige and honor to be able to sell our region every day. And as somebody who was born and raised in Lafayette, it really doesn't feel like a job sometimes. And my mom always said, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And that's sort of how I feel with the opportunity to wake up every day and promote a place that I was born and raised and love so much. And
I love that. So let's talk about cool Lafayette. So, I mentioned Jill has a beautiful opportunity to lead, to be the leader of the fastest growing with the most explosive growth in the whole state of Louisiana, which is Baton Rouge, right? And tell us about what makes Lafayette different. People will hear it like the Cajun music. You all have such cool culture, very family oriented. What do you think sets Lafayette apart?
Well, I think Lafayette and New Orleans are a lot alike, actually. And, we're known for our food, our music, our culture. We were just named the best food city in the South by the local palate. And so as the birthplace of Cajun and Zydeco music, that's something that we're really, really proud of. We're a very affordable destination, a great location, at the intersection of I-10 and I-49. And so I think people have an opportunity to get really immersed in our culture, which is something we're really proud of. We always say you don't have to go to a museum to learn about the Cajun and Creole cultures. You have the opportunity to experience it and become immersed in it every day of the week.
Oh, I love that. Absolutely. So when were selected to be on the Super Bowl committee, and we've all been on these calls together, and now it's right around the corner, February the 9th. What is your role, and how can Lafayette be more a part of the Super Bowl? And how do you think that your city and your region feels about the Super Bowl? Are they all excited? Do they feel a part? How can we make Lafayette more a part of it?
Well, first of all, I was very appreciative to Mark Romick for extending the invitation. I think, that just says a lot about the leadership in New Orleans, that they would reach out and want us to be involved. And so just glad more so as to be there for any assistance that we can lend, but also as a source of information for others in our community. And just recently, our mayor reached out and about the possibility of doing an event in New Orleans. And so trying to get some information on that in my role as a member of the committee, and really just there to assist in any way we can. And that's one of the great things about a Super Bowl is that, look, we compete on a lot of different things, but Lafayette's never going to host a Super Bowl, nor will anybody else on this panel. And so we have an opportunity to really be a part of something special for New Orleans and part of the state, and really glad to do that.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what, when I started, I run the Benson Leadership Academy, and for Gail Benson and all of her companies, for the Saints and the Pelicans and the real estate and the car dealerships. And it was the first year last year that we ran the Leadership Academy. And thankfully it was a great success. And the theme of the entire Leadership Academy was building a culture of connection with all these different brands, right? So that everyone felt like they were a part of something bigger. And so that's why they asked me to be on the Super Bowl committee, because I'm sure I'm a neutral voice, right? With a passion for connection and a passion for building more connection. And I'm sure in the past, I wasn't on the Super Bowl committee in the past, but I'm sure there were parts of Louisiana when New Orleans would host it in the past, I would assume, that felt like, okay, this is just New Orleans Day to shine. But we don't want it to feel like that. We don't want it to be New Orleans. This is, I keep saying regional. I mean, this includes Mississippi and Alabama and all of Louisiana, because it's something so much bigger than football.
Yes.
Right? We're on this global stage. And so I'm gonna pass the baton from Ben to Kyle. Now we're going all the way west across the state to Lake Charles, which is also a super cool city that's right on the border, right, of going into Texas. So welcome, Kyle, and tell us a little bit about your story.
All right, Michelle. Well, thank you. I kind of am going to combine Ben and Jill's story together because it's very similar. I was working in Baton Rouge. I was actually running the Louisiana Office of Tourism. Jay Darden hired me. Jill was actually running the Louisiana Travel Association at the same time. I worked with Alana and Ben. And so I worked for Jay for the 4 years that he was lieutenant governor, and then stayed on for another 2 years in Billy's first term when he was elected back in 2016. And Shelley Johnson, who had been the CEO here for over 30 years, was getting ready to retire. And as part of her succession plan, they hired me to come in and work 1 year as the chief operating officer and then take over as the CEO. So very much like Ben had someone who had been there for a long time that thought he could do the job. Shelley thought the same thing of me. And so I left Baton Rouge and moved to Lake Charles in 2018 and have been running the Lake Charles, Visit Lake Charles CVB ever since.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, as somebody who wasn't born and raised in Lake Charles and took this over as of 2018, what makes Lake Charles, what differentiates Lake Charles? What makes it a cool city?
Well, I think we fit our brand very well. Louisiana's playground. I mean, we have 4 casino properties that are luxurious resorts. It's not just about gaming; it's about all of the other activities that you have, as well as just a plethora of outdoor activities, both sports as well as hunting, fishing, biking, paddling, all types of water activities. And so that playground activity really is what draws people here. And just like everyone else in Louisiana, I mean, our culinary scene is really a big draw. People come not only to Lake Charles, Lafayette, Baton Rouge, Monroe, New Orleans. They want to eat the food. The Louisiana food is different than the food is anywhere else in the world. And that's just a draw for all of us.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And you are so right. I'm thinking as I'm listening to y'all talk, I'm thinking for those listeners out there who are tuning in because they want to know more about the Super Bowl. And even if you can't get an expensive ticket to the game, I mean, the festivities go on all week. We have a parade where Todd Graves is the king of the parade. And Todd, we have 2 billionaires in the state of Louisiana, Gail Benson, who owns the Pelicans and the Saints and many other businesses. And then we have Todd Graves, who founded Raising Cane's Chicken. And his headquarters, or one of his headquarters, is in Baton Rouge. So as I'm thinking about, the listeners tuning in like, oh, I want to be a part of the Super Bowl. There's going to be lots and lots of activities in New Orleans with the buildup of the week with the parade. And we're going to have the convention center and NFL experience. It's going to be super cool, even if you don't have a ticket. And as I'm listening to you all talk, if they could take a side trip, right? If they could go to the playground in Lake Charles, go west, and then as they're coming back, right, hit Lafayette and do some Cajun dancing, and then go up to Baton Rouge. And when I think of Baton Rouge, I think of football and I think of Raising Cane's. Right? When I think of Lafayette, I think of cool Cajun dancing and Cajun eating. And then Lake Charles, I think of, you're absolutely right, the outdoors and the beautiful playground. And then Alana, when I love Monroe and Shreveport, and I have clients up there, and so I'm up there at least once a year. It's such a beautiful part of the state that not a lot of people from South Louisiana, I feel like, get up there. So tell us about Monroe from your perspective, from your lens.
Well, I mean, it is, it's definitely a different part of the state. We love this area just for the fact that it is a little bit of different terrain. It's funny when we get people who are from South Louisiana, they're always like, it feels like we're in the hills. And I guess we kind of have that. We have, what's wonderful about Monroe-West Monroe is on the east side of the river, or the Washita River that runs through us. It's hills, and I mean, it's the flat land, and it's the delta, and it's very much farmland, and it's got all that. But to the left, up to the west of us, it is hills and the tall pines and the things that provide the lumber and the things that a lot of the agriculture comes out of our area. But beyond that, there's also just great people, great food, and some great things have come out of our area, from Delta Airlines to the bottling of Coca-Cola. Some of those great iconic things that people do know have come out of our region. And that is just something that we're very proud of, as well as our people and just our culture that is here from Monroe-West Monroe and Washita Parish.
Oh, and I know the Marcellas, great family, and Damon's doing a great job with Coca-Cola up there for sure. And the University of Louisiana that with the river is the bayou that runs through. Do you call it University of Louisiana Monroe?
Yes, ULM. It has it's one of the few universities that has, I think it's one of the only ones that has a bayou actually running through the middle of campus. So I know y'all have a swamp in the middle of yours and Ben, and but we actually have a bayou. You can paddle, kayak. Actually, students can kayak from the Baptist Student University student campus. You can paddle down the Bayou de Sear, which is what runs through the university. Our national ski championship team practices there on the university campus on that bayou. So you can actually be watching, you can watch them from, there's 2 restaurants that you can actually see them practicing from there right off campus. So it's a cool place. And people have not been here. It's always funny. We love it when people come from South Louisiana, have never been up here, and they're like, "Oh, it's really kind of cool." And you've got good food. I mean, they're always surprised. You've got really good food. We're really surprised. I love when we get to show people that experience, and then they get to experience some of the fun things that there are to do in our area.
Oh, I agree. That was one of the prettiest campuses that I've seen. And I'm a college professor. I'm in the business school at Loyola. And when my daughter, she's now at the University of Georgia, but when she was in high school, she was on the tennis team and the state championship was up in Monroe. And I just remember being blown away by the beauty of the University of Louisiana Monroe. So well done. And thank you for sharing. So now let's talk about kind of the gravity of the situation that we're in. I'm really curious for y'all's perspectives. We just had a terrorist attack happen in New Orleans. And I'm sure when we all woke up on New Year's Day, particularly this panel, as we've been working tirelessly to make sure that the public knows. It's interesting as I'm speaking out loud, I'm realizing one of our biggest issues on the calls that we've been on about the Super Bowl is to make sure that before this terrorist attack, to make sure the public knew that we could keep the electricity on in the Superdome. That was our biggest. Boy, did things change, right? And now we woke up on New Year's Day and I thought, are you kidding me? A terrorist attacked Bourbon Street? And it wasn't just on New Orleans. It was our freedom. It was America. It was, and it was everything that New Orleans represents, right? You can never try to get into the head of the attacker, but what a horrific, tragic event. So let me ask you all, and I'm not even gonna ask by name. You can volunteer your answer. What is this going to do? I mean, I feel like the city, I had a house full of University of Georgia students staying with me when all that happened for the Sugar Bowl. And we watched the news and we listened to everything. And these girls had the best attitudes. And they said, you know what? There's probably not a safer city now than New Orleans with all of the National Guard, the federal troops, the SWAT team. I mean, everybody's here in town to ensure the safety and will be for the Super Bowl. So I live right in the middle of it. So I'm feeling pretty safe. What are you feeling?
Well, I'll go, Michelle. I think you're absolutely right. It's going to be one of the safest places you can be in the country now because all eyes are on the safety of New Orleans, and so I really do believe that you've pinned it. And I think the people of New Orleans are so resilient, and we've got to give a nod to everybody, and especially I want to say how sorry we are here in Baton Rouge for all of the lives that have been lost. And certainly we feel it here in Baton Rouge because several of the folks who were down there and lost their lives have family members here. And so we're feeling it here in Baton Rouge, and I think we're feeling it all over the state. But I do believe that people are going to understand that that this is now going to be one of the safest places you can be.
Absolutely. I remember when I was reaching out to some of the Saints executives when I had the house full of UGA girls and they delayed the Sugar Bowl a day. And so I'm sitting here thinking, do I send these girls to the Sugar Bowl, right? So I reach out to the Saints executives and they said, the Superdome has never been safer. We have scoured it for bombs, for anything. Like you can't step on something that could hurt you, right? Like it is the safest it will ever be. And so I sent the girls to the Sugar Bowl and they said they were so glad that they went. Were any of you all at the Sugar Bowl? I was not. They said it was electric. And also just people were so grateful, right, to have the chance to celebrate freedom and not let terrorism win.
Michelle, for years since 9/11, they you know the Super Bowl itself, no matter what city it's been in, has always been one of the safest places that you could be. With what occurred and where it occurred, I think you will see not only the Superdome and the area around the football game, but the entire French Quarter will be as safe a zone as you can see over that entire week. Like I said, I think from our governor to the mayor to Homeland Security, they're going to ensure that everyone who comes to New Orleans for the Super Bowl, both from a corporate side, from a leisure side, and to watch the game, are safe, secure, and able to enjoy both the game itself as well as the amenities around the stadium and around the New Orleans area.
Well, I'll agree with that. And I think, we said back home that I think the Sugar Bowl was probably the safest place to be in the state of Louisiana, if not the country, that day. And like for the Super Bowl as well. It's just such a tragic event. And when you're in our position, I think you wake up and you see that. And in addition to being just so sympathetic to the tragedy, you realize that this can and is happening all over the place. And what a tough position that puts your community in. In 2014, we had a shooting at one of our movie theaters right after being named the happiest city in America. And nothing to this magnitude, I guess, but we had, in terms of the national coverage of the event. But it was very tough on our community. I think New Orleans, like Lafayette, during that time, is a very resilient place. And I think New Orleans will come back stronger than ever. And I think at the end of the day, we've gotten to the point where people are not going to allow fear to really come out of this and as a means to support what this person did. I think it's going to be the opposite. I think people are really going to rally around New Orleans and want to make it a special Super Bowl.
Oh gosh, I feel the same way. And one of my colleagues, he has researched and studied Stoicism. And when I was confiding to him on New Year's Day, that I kept thinking, oh my gosh, I just feel so bad for all of these leaders who are tirelessly working for the great state of Louisiana. And then we get hit by a terrorist attack. Like, what? And he said, Michelle, rather than why me, think, try me. And I thought, thank you. I needed that, because that is a perfect difference of framing, right? When it comes to New Orleans, because I'm not from here. I chose this city, even knowing some of the statistics. That's as far as how low we were on some of the categories. I chose to live here. I was born in DC and I moved all over the country. And I chose this great state, and I chose to go to LSU, and I chose to work at Loyola because I just loved the people. I loved the culture. I loved the people. I dedicated my first book, The Seismic Shift in Leadership. I dedicated it to the city of New Orleans, where you don't have to be perfect. Because I'd lived in all these other cities that ended up kind of being cookie cutters. And I felt tremendous pressure to end up like looking like everybody else. And then I get here, and as Michael Hatt loves to say, the only sin in New Orleans is to be boring. I mean, this is a city where you really don't want to look like everybody else and act like everybody else. I mean, and it's our incredible, intense diversity that is what attracts so many tourists to the city, right? We are a true, my students at Loyola love to say, we're not a melting pot, we're a tossed salad. Because we're not all melted in one. We're cool because we're a tossed salad of all of these cool individual parts that are still present and have so much character. And so rather than thinking, why us, right? Try us, like you all said. Like we've been swatted down before, and we are going to come back stronger than ever, because you can't kill the beauty of the city, which is the imperfections and the joie de vivre and the celebratory nature, and in the inclusivity. Let's come together. And that was the purpose of this whole podcast episode. Let's all come together and show everybody that this is not just a football game in New Orleans. right? This is an incredible opportunity to put us on the global stage to say, this is about community, this is about culture, this is about our people, and this is about a way of showing people that you really can be true to yourself. And you can laugh out loud and you can dress up all you want in costumes and dance and not be self-conscious about it. And I feel like at least the house full of girls that I had when I was hosting them, when the tragic event happened, they said, you know what, that's what people love about New Orleans. So we can't let one person who went against what we think makes the city so great, we can't let them win. We can't let them win. So I would love to hear a couple more comments from you all since I want to bring the entire region together. And how can we better do that? Bringing Lafayette, bringing Lake Charles, bringing Monroe, and bringing Baton Rouge together so that you feel that you are a part. It's not just New Orleans. How can we do a better job? I never want to be the person in New Orleans, like speaking at people saying we're hosting this city is hosting it. No, this entire region and this entire state is hosting. So let's go around. I want to hear one idea of how other people, because I want other cities to learn from us, right? How do you bring an entire region together and create a culture of connection for an event? We'll start with Jill.
Well, I think we've already got some of that connection going and have for quite some time, because Mark Romig and Walt Leger and the folks in New Orleans have just been, had their arms wide open and said, look, this is for all of us. And we want this to happen in a big way for our entire state. So we have to shout out to them, especially Michelle, because they have been wonderful to all of us here in the state. But I do think things like what the Louisiana Office of Tourism is doing for a media event and working with all of us to bring us all together so that we can showcase our individual locations as well as the rest of our state as a whole to the media that will be arriving in New Orleans.
Oh, that was beautiful, Jill. I couldn't agree with you more. Alana.
Yeah, the other, I'll give the Louisiana Office of Tourism credit too. There's some other events that are happening during the week to showcase the whole state of Louisiana. And that's what's nice is it is a spotlight on New Orleans, but it is the reflection of the whole state of Louisiana. And that all comes together in something as magnificent as the Super Bowl and all the events building up to it. We have had a tragedy, but what I think you'll see is Louisiana, the people of Louisiana, people in New Orleans are going to shine through all this, and we're going to make everyone want to come and visit and be a part of what we have to offer. It's so great. How can you not want to be a part of it? So I think this is just an opportunity to showcase all the great things in our state and showcase all the people that make it the unique place that it is to visit and that people want to come and see and be a part of.
Oh, couldn't agree with you more. Kyle.
Yeah, I want to call out Kelly Schultz, because I think a key part of what has made all of this work is the communication. And like I said, she has just communicated. Great having her back in New Orleans, obviously, after spending the time that she did in Memphis. But, when you're putting on something this large and you're trying to bring groups in that maybe haven't been a part of it in the past, that communication is absolutely key. And I go back to exactly what Jill and Alana led up to. The activities during the week really provide some opportunities for the partnership from around the state to showcase that. And the Lieutenant Governor and the Office of Tourism have been wonderful about including everyone in those particular events.
Beautiful. Thank you, Kyle. Ben.
You put me last. I'm not sure there's much more to add, but just echo what everyone has said. We're going to be participating in some of the media events, and my director of sports business development is working to shift with the New Orleans Sports Foundation. So I think that sort of collaboration is important, and not just for this event, but we've been doing that for a while now as partners in the tourism economy, working with New Orleans, and this will serve as a foundation, I think, to continue that work as we move past the Super Bowl. And the last thing I would just add is I think we all realize at the end of the day, I'm not going to get a whole lot of, if any, room nights. There's so many hotels between New Orleans and Lafayette. But if somebody comes to New Orleans and has a great experience, just like if they go to Monroe or Lake Charles or Baton Rouge, I have a better chance of getting that person to come to Lafayette because of the experience they had in our state at another location. So many positives to this.
Oh, gosh. So beautifully said. Thank you. You know that I'm semi-obsessed, if not fully obsessed with connection. And I think that is really what drew me to this great state of Louisiana is I just think we do connection better. And I haven't really figured out why. And that's the $1,000,000 question, right? I know it's about people. And so when I coach my leaders, I try to tell them that the jerk boss days are over. You just can't get away with being a jerk boss anymore. You just can't. I know they're still out there. I get it, but I'm hoping that we're getting rid of them one day at a time because it just doesn't work, right? You want to be a good human, show up as a good human. You want to be able to accept people as they are, see them as their full selves. You want to be able to allow and accept and give each other permission to be imperfect, right? And I think all of these things, when you think about leadership, is applicable to what makes Louisiana really cool, right? We're all our own people. We're loving. We open our arms out. We give everybody hugs and kisses. We feed them. We dance with them. We celebrate with each other. And we don't make excuses. Like that is in our DNA, and that is what we do, right? We sing, we dance, we embrace, we celebrate, we're joyful, and we're human, and we're imperfect. And so thank you for showing up, and thank you for your leadership, because I know all of you all on this panel, you work tirelessly. And we'll go ahead and share what are you most excited about the Super Bowl? And it could be sitting in your home, it could be, going to the media center, I don't know, but what are you most excited about the upcoming Super Bowl? And we'll start with Jill.
Well, I hope the Lions make it. That's all I'm going to say.
Love that. Okay, awesome. Alana.
I'm looking for KC for a three-peat, but hey. But no, I'm excited about. There's a lot of the people getting together. There's a lot of us that get together, family and friends. We get together and watch great food, and it's just that camaraderie and that time together that is always fun. No matter what is happening, who's playing, we still have a good time watching the Super Bowl and just getting together and enjoying that opportunity for a reason to gather. I mean, that's all we need is we need someone that doesn't have to be a Super Bowl. We can be a birthday, whatever. My husband says we could celebrate if there was any new birth, whatever. We have a reason to get together. So for me, that is it: getting together with family and friends and eating and enjoying each other's company as we watch the Super Bowl.
Love it. Kyle.
Same thing. It's the Super Bowl party. We do the same thing every year. We have a group of about 20 or 25 of us that gather up on the back patio and watch on TV and fire the grill up and have a good time. It's a typical Louisiana, gathering of family and friends and football and food. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
I love it. How about you, Ben?
Well, I'm a diehard Saints fan, football fan, and so I'm hoping the Saints are able to watch what real football is supposed to look like. I'm joking there, but obviously, a new coach coming in, so that's going to create a lot of excitement, I think, for the fan base as we, look to the future and optimism. But I'm with a lot of the rest of the crew. I love watching the Super Bowl on my back patio, hopefully with a nice little fire going and having family and friends over. It's really a fun day to be with family and friends and celebrate. And I think it's even more special when it's in New Orleans.
Oh, I couldn't agree with y'all more. And, I'm a huge Saints fan as well. And after running the Leadership Academy and working with so many of the leaders, it was really hard to be in the stadium at the end of the season to see them lose.
Yeah.
Because after the first two games, I thought we were going to the Super Bowl.
Right. Me too.
And then you watch it happen. And here's what I've learned is, and this is applicable to all of us as leaders, is when you know somebody's story, it's really hard to judge. So all of a sudden, I'm up in the stands, not just as a fan. And before, when I didn't know the leaders who work again around the clock trying to make this a winning organization, before I knew the leaders, it was so easy to be in the fans and look and laugh when people put the bags over their heads, and because I didn't know them. But once you know the leaders who are working so hard trying to make this a successful organization, then you just can't judge, right? You have to say, you know what? They gave it their best this year. There were a lot of injuries and some tough transitions between the head coaches. And so we hope for a better record next season. So I can't thank you all enough for being on this panel and talking about connection. And for all of you listeners tuning in, you can see why Louisiana is just freaking cool. It's a really cool state full of beautiful people who are full of joy, who love to have fun and to celebrate, and who focus on family. And we cannot wait to welcome you in town for the Super Bowl, whether you're coming here to New Orleans, whether you have a ticket to the game, or whether you then go visit Lafayette, Lake Charles, Baton Rouge, or Monroe. We welcome you to the state of Louisiana. And thank you so much, you all. Thank you for tuning into the Seismic Shift podcast, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us on the Seismic Shift. And before you go, can I ask one favor of you? Do you mind sharing today's episode with a leader you know? The power of this conversation is found in your using it and sharing it to create real connection in your life. Lastly, I'd like to thank Loyola University New Orleans for helping bring this content to life.